you're on. I'll just lay down here on my couch and have a look at you. Well, look at you there. Nobody is there. I'm all by myself. Hi. So it's about bedtime, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm getting a little tired here. I've been watching, I was curious about this convoy that's going across from California to DC, and this guy's counting all these trucks coming into the truck stop in just before they get to Texas. They're in New Mexico. I think he counted 24 trucks. These are friendly truckers, you know. All these people that were filming, they were all seeing each other filming, and there's about 4 of them, and they're all just with their phones, you know, just doing their own live videos. And you know, and I think that there's a great feeling of belonging when you're part of a movement, whatever the movement is. It's a good feeling that people have when they're part of something. And you know, as I watch, you know, the sky is so clear, and I can just feel it. I can just smell the air there in New Mexico. I just, you know, and there's these beautiful big, like the core of a volcano that's left. I guess they're buttes. Is that what they are? I don't know. Anyways, they were covered, bathed in light, like brown, beautiful browns and yellows, and everybody was happy, and it's quite an adventure, you know. I mean, I don't want to think about what the politics of all that stuff. I just, you know, people that are in agreement with one another, and they're happy, and they're driving, and you know, there's nothing like traveling. Like to take a trip from California from the West Coast to the East Coast, you know, there's just nothing like it. And if you're part of a group, and there's, you know, like I was part of a little convoy once. We was a bunch of us hippies in North Carolina, near Chapel Hill, Hillsboro. I wonder if the Hillsboro, North Carolina folks are out there. Anyway, and we all got together, and we drove in all their cars in a long line to Tennessee to go visit Stephen Gaskin's farm. And there's such a camaraderie, you know, like everybody's driving the same place. And I mean, when it's big and it's getting bigger all the time, you know, the excitement builds, you know, and there's no talk of what really it's about, but just enjoying it all, and the CB radios, and talking to one another. And there's these folks in the front that are planning the route, and they're checking to make sure there's room for everybody to stay at a truck stop or whatever, and then motels for the people that are not in big trucks. I guess it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit in New Mexico tonight. It's pretty cold. New Mexico, isn't that? That's down there by Arizona. How can it be 10 degrees? Anyway, I guess it is. I had a wonderful drive across the United States when I was young. In 1976, I was born in 55, so 65, 75, so I was 21. I was in university, and I broke my arm, and I couldn't do anything. It was my right arm. And that's interesting. I broke a wrist, and I broke my arm, and then later, just last year, I broke a wrist, and I broke a leg. That was in Maine, my ankle, bottom of the tibia or something. My body's been through a lot. Anyway, I broke my arm, and I got in my, I wanted to, I just wanted to travel. I just wanted to go. So I'd already been going down to Jamaica and back. And so there was a bus, and you could take a bus for 7 days for $76. And so you could just live on this bus. I mean, you know, I suppose you didn't think you were going to live on it, but I had the back 3 seats in the back row, and that was where I slept. Had a bathroom right beside me, and I sit on the front seat with my feet up on that rail, and I would draw. I had a big, huge sketchbook. It was a huge sketchbook, probably 18 by 24 or something. And I had a pack of crayons, and I drew the road and the back of the trucks ahead. You know, it's just a little rectangle with two little black spots. That's the back of a truck. Maybe a little mirror out the side. And all the little adventures, you know, there'd be the different landscape that would go by. And people would get on the bus, and there was a kind of camaraderie that, well, and then I met another girl. I guess she was going to New Mexico, I think. And I got off in Phoenix. Well, no, actually, I went all the way to the end, to San Luis Obispo. And then I went from there to back to Phoenix, and I ended up my uncle lived there, and my aunt, his sister, lived in another place, both in Phoenix. So I stayed overnight with my uncle, I think, and then I stayed with my aunt, and then I got myself an apartment and a job. Anyway, I loved that open air, the Arizona and the dry, fresh, hot air. Of course, I don't think it was hot when I started. I think it was January, actually, when I was going there. But from Georgia, right, there's never cold down there. Anyway, so this is bringing it all back. So 7 days for $76. And so I just lived on that bus. Had a guitar. I'd play my guitar in the front of the bus. And the passengers would change, you know. They'd get on and off. And there would be truck stops, and I would get off and get something to eat. Or not a bus stop, I guess, bus stations. You get off and get something to eat and freshen up. Get back on the bus. Oh, there were some big cities, you know. San Francisco and Los Angeles. Los Angeles was quite interesting. It was so clear that day. And there were all those hills overlooking the city that were just, they were just like little knolls. And the road would twist through. It was just the most beautiful, idyllic place. Everybody would talk about how terribly polluted it was, but to me it wasn't polluted at all. It was very beautiful. I guess they'd had rain. Oops. Anyway, so I like following the route. Like I just found, you know, I find these different people doing live videos. I finally figured out what you have to type in is People's Convoy. I tried to put in DC convoy protest. That didn't get me very far, but I think it's People's Convoy. And so I subscribe to these different people so I can find them again. They'll just show up on my subscriptions. The trouble is I get so many subscriptions. I should go through and get rid of some so I'm not so bogged down with so many. But this is where I find this is where the story really is from the people that are on the trip, you know? And they're talking about, you know, the guy got there an hour ahead of the group because he had passed the leaders. And so he took a shower, how clean he felt and refreshed, and, you know, telling us about the truckers that are going to stay in their trucks, but people that are in regular vehicles or pickup trucks, they need to go in a hotel because it's going to be too cold. And it's sort of like, I just love traveling. I was a travel writer, eh? Traveling is awesome. But you know, I think the best traveling is when you go by yourself in a car. Like Mary came down to Phoenix from Georgia or came west to Phoenix, and I packed up everything in my little house. I quit my job. We put everything in I had a little tiny station wagon, which I had bought from the people that I rented the house from. It was a little tiny house. You could probably fit the whole house in my kitchen and family room. Oh, easily. Yeah. It was square. Oh, this is big though. It was a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom, and a kitchen. And the kitchen and the bathroom were the same size, which was pretty small. I had a book, and I would read the book. It was The Power of Prayer. There's another one, The Power of Positive Thinking, I think. I think it was The Power of Prayer. But I didn't have anything because I had just come from Georgia with just what was on my back, and I guess I had my guitar. And you know what I would eat? I had a few jars of dried nuts and fruit. And so I would fill up my quart jar with water, and I'd put in some sunflower seeds and whatever else. And then I would just had a spoon and I would just eat on that throughout the day. I was so content, so satisfied. It was so lovely. And you know, I would sit toward the back of the bus sometimes and you could see out the windows a whole side of the bus. See out all the windows. You get a real big panorama view on one side anyway, and then the front. But I really liked the front of the bus. That was my favorite place because then you could see everything ahead. And I would draw it all. I would draw the road curving. I would draw a mountain beside it or the trees. And once upon a time, there was a police officer that stopped the bus and he got on. And I guess he was looking for somebody, a convict of some sort or something. And so I don't remember what he said, but I drew a picture of him standing there on the bus looking at us. It was a interesting, such an interesting experience. So if I look through that book, I don't even know where that book is now, but it's here somewhere. But it was such a life-changing event. So for all these people that are driving together, well, these are truck drivers who drive all the time, so I mean, I don't know that it's that amazing for them probably, but still, I just love driving. Like when I took off and went to see Mary in Connecticut, like I do that all the time, right? Like I decide, okay, it's time. It just sort of feels like the right thing to do at the time. Like I can see my way clear to not having to be here for a while, and I'll just say, okay, I'm going, and I'll just go and put everything in the car and go. Away I go. It's time. Bye, Willem. You don't mind if I go to Connecticut this morning, do you? If I'm not home by 3, I'll write you a postcard. But of course, I didn't write a postcard. I would phone them. And so then when 5 years ago, I guess, Scarlett and Bo lived here with us, and there was work being done on the house, and I had just endured the great purge, is what I call it. The great purge is when most of the things that were in my kitchen were thrown away with my cupboards, as well as many other things throughout the house that just seemed to be too many of them, I guess, but it all went. And my house was not up to snuff. My cleaning and my house was not, it was not a magazine home. It was not a place for people to come and look at. And it was not empty. I love stuff. And I love it when it's crowded. I really love it when things are crowded. When it's open and spacious, I don't feel cozy. I don't like it. I want to I go in a corner where I can sort of snuggle in and feel cozy. I just love having stuff around. I grew up with stuff around. And maybe I'm a hoarder, but I just love having lots of stuff around. I do good in a tiny spot because everything would be crowded for me. I could just nestle myself right in. Anyway, so my whole house had taken on a whole different place. So, like I used to say when I clean the house that it looks bald. Oh, look at the house, it's so bald. There's nothing anywhere, like everything put away. Things don't even have places some of the time. You have to boot something else out to give something a place. I have that problem. It's because I create so many things and I collect things. Anyway, whatever. It is what it is. But it was not appreciated. It was not. And so I went to Connecticut. I had just had my second hip replaced, and had been 6 weeks or something, and I was fine. I could do stuff. And away I went. I wasn't really escaping it, but it was time. I hadn't traveled for a while. I think my mom had died before then, because I had been going back and forth to Georgia, which was no problem. My mom phoned one night and said that my dad had died. She phoned about 3 in the morning, and so I knew that she had to wear these stockings for her thrombosis in her legs to keep her veins in place. And so I knew that there was nobody there to help her, and what was she going to do? And so I said goodbye to Willem, and I left. I guess she must have called about 2:30 or something, and by 3 o'clock I was in the car. And I think I got there at 9 o'clock the next night, or 9 o'clock that night. I just drove straight through. I was just worried about her. Actually, and my sister got there. My sister flew from California, and she got there after me. Anyway, and so after that, I was kind of taking care of my mom, but I also had a family. I had children still at home, so I would go back and forth a lot. But then I had nobody to take care of her. It was just me, and somebody needed to be there until she was quite frail after he died. But after a few months, she hadn't been walking. She had fallen on the front yard once going up to the mailbox. So my dad had said she better not walk up to the mailbox anymore. And so she'd been in the house forever. But I got her a walker. And so up the driveway she would go, and I got her a swing, porch swing on the lawn. So she'd sit there in the swing, and I had bubbles there. And so we'd have bubble contests, and we'd blow the bubbles, and they would fly over down the road. It was a very steep hill. They would fly way over to the house, the Smith's house. See, we lived across from Sandersons and Morrows and Mowers and Smiths. That was when I was young. The names have totally changed by now, but so we'd do that, and she would talk to people. People would come walk their dogs up and down the road, and the Smiths had sold their house to Walter, or maybe there was somebody in between. I don't know. But anyway, so Walter lived in that house, and he was an old man, and he worked at the university. She had been a secretary, the executive secretary for physics and astronomy at the University of Georgia. And my dad was a professor in the geography department, and so the parking lot, they shared the parking lot. Anyway, but so Walter down the road, he was an entomologist, right? He did bugs and put bugs on, put a pin through the bug or put, different things. But he did a lot of research on bugs. And he had ticks in the yard, lots of ticks down there in Georgia. And so he didn't get Lyme, he got ehrlichiosis or something like that. And there was something else that he ended up having from these ticks. But he was it's interesting that sometimes the problems we get have to do with the things that we have learned a lot about. It's very interesting. So he really knew a lot about bugs and the diseases they carried. And so he did his own research, and he knew what to tell the doctors, and none of the doctors would believe him. He found out it was not ehrlichiosis was not the only thing, there was another one. But anyway, so Mom would sit there in her swing, and Walter would walk his dog, Sally, walk her up the road. He worked nights. He was retired, but he'd go over to the university. So he'd get up at 3 at night, and he'd come back in the morning, early in the morning, and that would be his day. And so he would walk Sally about 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something up the hill. She was a big brown dog with fuzzy fur. And Mom was so happy to see Walter every day, and he was happy to see her, and they were just good friends. They'd been pals for years, And there were other people that were in the neighborhood that they all knew each other. One guy down the road, he was, I don't know, he worked in the dean's office, or maybe he was the dean or something, and This guy over here was the head of the department. And so all these people that my mother knew would drive by or be on the road. Anyway, so it opened up her life and she regained her strength because she could see people that were walking around. But for me, it was hard to stay there, to just be there. Because I'm, what do I do? What do I do? So I guess I did what Scarlett did. I dejunked a bit, you know? I moved things. I moved furniture to the basement that was just cluttering, like speakers that were never used, things like that. I tried to, because it was overwhelming for me, there was just narrow pathways. For years, my mother, she had magazine subscriptions, like 10 magazines she subscribed to. I mean, this woman was a really smart woman. She was The Economist and The New Yorker and Conservation Magazine and Newsweek and Time and did I say The Economist? And Business Week. And she'd read them all. And she also had all the women's ones, McCall's and Women's Day and Good Housekeeping and Better Homes and Gardens. Like, she got them all. And so there was this stack. There were 3 stacks, actually, that were about a yard high in the front foyer when I went there years ago. When I guess it was 40 years ago when my son was little. Well, it must have been 38 years ago or something. But anyway, so my dad showed me this stack of magazines, and he said every time it's garbage day, he would take a chunk off the top, like 6 inches off the top of one stack, and it would go. Anyway, that had all been gone by then, but it was hard. So I would go walking up and down the road somewhat, but she didn't really want me to go for a walk. Oh, she didn't mind, but like she really wanted me to be there. And if it was raining and I wanted to go somewhere, do something, you know, I finally figured out there was a park that had a lake. And so I got myself a little kayak and I went to the lake and I'd go kayaking. And it was just awesome. Oh my gosh. What was the name of that lake? It's Sandy Park, Sandy Creek. Yeah, there was a Sandy Creek Park or conservation area or something. So that was the place I would go. And I loved that because at least I could be in nature and be alone, and I was making videos, right? Like you guys were still there. Remember that? There'd be a lot of videos on here from Sandy Creek. I tell you guys all these videos, you know. All you have to do is type in Nancy Today Sandy Creek and they should come up. There's probably even a playlist. Sandy Creek. There's a playlist of Mom. And I took my spinning wheel and I would spin when I was there. I would sit beside her on the thing and spin. Oh, I stopped to see one of my YouTube friends, Marianne, in North Carolina. And there was a spinning store near her. I think it was near Charlotte. And it was a really nice store, and I had all this roving, different colors. It was very long, thick roving. It was really big size stuff. And I would just peel off a clump of it and it would just spin up. It was the easiest thing in the world to spin roving. It was like, this must be cheating. There's no work to this. Oh, and I would make baskets. I took a whole bunch of willow with me one time. They didn't ask me on my way into the United States if I had any plant life or anything like that. But on the way into Canada, they did. So I had a birch bark basket I had made that they were gonna, I said, it's my purse. This is my purse. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. I made it in Canada. It's from Canada. I don't know if I told them I made it. Probably told them I made it. I tell everybody I make everything. I got some pretty cool stuff I've made, eh? Those are nice baskets. That basket up there and those gourds I painted. I like to be surrounded by my stuff. Otherwise, you know, that's part of my life. Like that basket, I use that. It's a very strange looking basket, but I carry that in the garden and I'll put plants through it. Like if I'm going to harvest a whole bunch of something tall, they just stick through it. Everything has a use. Doesn't have a place, but it has a use. So I need to build a place. I can't build another room. Oh well. Anyway, so all that was about traveling. And I love traveling. I love seeing new places. Being a travel writer was very different, though, because you were not on your own. You have a lot of freedom when you're on your own. Like, I drove from Connecticut to Maine, and I took the back roads. I mean, almost dirt roads. And I would just slow down, go real slow, and look for animals. And I would park by the side of the road and write in my journal, and then I'd keep driving. My cousin's in Maine. I was going to go visit. I couldn't tell him when I'd get there because I didn't know. It depended how long I took and how many back roads I took and what caught my eye. Well, maybe I'd want to go swimming in the ocean, or maybe I'd want to go and explore some, whatever. I eventually showed up. But when I would drive back home from Georgia to Canada once a month or something, and sometimes it was longer. Like once I stayed for 6 months, and finally Willem came and got me. I had friends telling me, your son needs you. You should be here. I don't know if his life would have turned out any differently if I had been here. But anyway. So, anyway, just watching this video today brought all that back. My dad was a great traveler. Like he would pack up and go somewhere. He'd arrange it all, and he'd have a great itinerary. And he took a trip to China. I guess it was a tour trip, And he went to all of Europe and all the major cities in Europe. And he went to, I don't know if he ever went to Africa. My sister did. She went on a safari in Africa. My sister got an award from the King of Saudi Arabia. It's the King Faisal Award in medicine. Can you imagine that? What a sister. My parents must have been so proud of her. Like, she was like in the top of her field, and she's, all those associations or organizations, like she was given an honorary PhD from the University of Paris. That was my sister. We live in different worlds, totally different worlds. But you know what? If I had a microscope, a DNA microscope, I would have a lot of fun. I would learn so much. I think it's important to learn and to keep learning. I was listening to a talk today by the president of the University of BYU. It was in 1987, so it was, I forget his name. Whatever. Anyway, and he was saying something about education and learning, and that learning is a lifelong thing. And the intelligence, what we learn in this life goes with us in the next life. All the things we learn about the earth, what's in it and on it and under it, and the past and the present, and all those things. All that knowledge goes with you. I'm not a big reader, my dad and mom, they read all the time. I do. I find that readers read and wish they would do something, but doers don't really read. They read enough to know how to do it, and then they do. There's two kinds of people. But there's this kind of hierarchy out there about readers. Like, have you read this such and such a book? You haven't? Oh, I see. Like people who read, there's some superiority that they feel they have because they are readers. And yet, when I think about reading, I think, can you imagine just sitting the whole day and reading a book? I I went to the library, when we first came to Canada and I first came and had winter, and I'd never had winter before. Um, and so I had cabin fever, and at one point I discovered the library, and I could check out murder mystery books. And so and other books, all kinds of novels. And so I found this one author I really liked, and so I would settle in on the couch and I would read and read and read, and I really felt guilty, like I was wasting the whole day. I had nothing at all to show for my day, and what I had learned or read about wasn't really worth having done it. Like it wasn't like it was an accomplishment or I had learned something important and it was useful that I had done it. I read reference books, how to make baskets, how to garden, how to anything, and all about the birds and the bees and the insects and the trees and the plants and the grasses and the water and the pond life and the weather. That's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. But because I don't like to read too much, I love pictures because I'm a very visual person. When I read, I repeat everything in my head that I read. Grandma's babysitting service. Little people always welcome. Services include meals, lessons, entertainment, and lots of hugs. Tender, loving care for your most precious possessions. But I repeat it in my head, so I don't read very fast. And of course, I lose interest if it's not riveting. So if I really want to do something in a book, I usually have to start, like if I'm making birch bark baskets from this birch bark basket making book, I start and make the first one and I just make them all the way through. I did that with an origami book too. Because how do you pick one? If you really want to learn how to make origami, you really need to make everything that's in the book, and then you know how to do it. Then you get it together in your head so you know. There was something that was happening to me today that I was realizing that something along those lines. I forget now what it was. That was in the past. It's like The Lion King. You remember The Lion King? The kids used to watch The Lion King for hours. The Lion King and then, oh yeah, The Parent Trap. That was one. My husband's kids watched that. They loved that. Of course, he was their dad, and their mom and dad were divorced, and so it's a lovely story where the parents get back together. But Erin used to watch that every time she comes. She just watch it over and over and over. I love that show. It's a pretty good movie. The twins that take each other's places and go to the other person's house. One lives in New York City in a very cityfied area and, city life. And the other one lives on a ranch out west, And anyway, they trade places. They meet at camp and they trade places. Did you ever go to camp? Wasn't camp great? I used to love camp. I really loved it. And I went back to my camp, right? Remember all those videos about Camp Echoe? ECHOEE? The Yona Girl Scout Council. Well, I went back there and I filmed it, but it was all different, right? It was overgrown and the shower was still there. It was very interesting because the shower, the faucet, it didn't turn on. It was a lever that went up, and I remembered it. That was the only one I'd ever seen that was like that, and it was very memorable just to stand there in that shower room with the slatted floor. It was the same, even though it had been like, I don't know, 30 years since I'd been there. No, I was there when I was like 10. So what does that make it? 10. And when did I do it? I went about, I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 10 years ago. People say like it's it's a long time ago. It's like 10 years ago. And I think 10 years is a long time. Let me get my head around that. Anyway, 10 years is nothing. 35 years is a long time ago. 40 years is a long time ago. I was talking to Frank today. Oh, I hung up on you today because Frank called. Frank, he has his dogs. He used to have 40 dogs, he said. Oh my gosh. And he takes them, he's got several teams, and he's got these sleds. And so he has to have a certain amount of snow so that the sled won't get broken. He can't cross roads or anything. But he takes these dogs out, and how did I get onto Frank? Where are we going for that? No idea. I gave him all the burned cookies. They weren't really burned. They were just dark. And he was so thrilled. He was so happy because he'd had different things happen this week. You see, there was a guy that lived down the road who lived alone, and he died, and nobody found him for like a week. And then this happened to another friend of his just down the road, and he's alone. He's kind of a hermit in the woods, you know. He lives off of the land. He's got his dogs, and he goes for runs. He's a botanist, and he taught me all kinds of stuff about the plants. All the plants that we have, and the trees. He's the one that taught me all that. He has this huge garden. It's nestled in the woods. And every year he would add so much stuff to the garden, so much leaves and compost, and he really built up those garden beds, and he would live on what he grew. He still does. He's a pretty cool guy. So what was I talking about? Oh, what did you just say? Hold on, I missed something. Hola, Nancy, ¿cómo estás? Te escucho y me gustas como eres. Dios te bendiga. Saludos, un abrazado y vestidos. Saludos a un abrazo y vestido. That's hugs and kisses. Hi, Nancy. How are you? Te escucho y me gustas como eres. You te escucho y me gustas como eres. What does that mean? Te escucho. Escuchar is to listen. I listen and I like como eres, how you are. Dios te bendiga. God, what is it? Bendiga. Bendigar? I don't know what that means. I imagine it's God bless you. Bendiga. Hi. Saludos is... Well, anyway, hi, Veronica Martinez. Muchas gracias. No me recuerdo mucho. Si tú has hablado con mí años pasado, voy a buscarlos en los comentos. Anyway, I'll look for your comments if I can see, and I'll remember. Veronica Martinez. So are you in Mexico or Spain, or are you in the States? I don't remember these things. You remember Yadira? Yadira, she lived in Georgia, and she took care of my mom. I took my mom out to a Mexican restaurant one day, or she took me out. She and my dad would go out to restaurants all the time. So we'd been somewhere, and so we drove by and we stopped at this place, and this girl, she was so nice. I just love Mexican folks. They're just the most wonderful, loving people. You know, I've traveled in Mexico, and the people there are really good, and they're honest. I mean, there's also the criminals and all that, gangs and crap going on. But anyway, but the regular people are just really good, humble people. I think poor people are often, in countries where they're poor, very interesting. You know what I saw yesterday? I was watching a movie or a video about the lights that they can see from space, and how you can tell the history of the whole world by looking at the Earth from space. And he showed that, for instance, you could see the difference. There was one country, Syria. and you could see all the city lights all over the world, right? So Syria used to have lots of lights everywhere. Now, dark. The whole country is dark. And just because of that war that went on, Al Qaeda or whatever it was. And there's another country that's, well, in Africa is pretty dark. And you know, these people don't have electricity. And but there was a country that, oh, North Korea. North Korea, the whole country's dark. Like there's this border with South Korea, and South Korea is all brilliantly lit up, and China's all lit up, but North Korea is dark. It means they don't have electricity. Can you imagine? There's been so many restrictions on North Korea for so long. What must it be like to live there? How would you find out? People don't go there, right? I don't think you can get in, can you? Hello, I'd like to book a flight to North Korea, please. Yeah, I just want to go and hang out, do some tourism. I don't think you can do that. But it was really interesting because he went through all these countries and you could see the different, you know, like Daniel, he lives in Vietnam now, but he was in Shenzhen in China. And there's this whole group of cities, and it's so brilliantly lit up. Hong Kong, which is just a stone's throw off the coast from Shenzhen, and there's Guangzhou, and I don't know what the names of them are, but there's about 5 metropolitan cities that are right beside each other. I don't remember looking at what Canada looked like, but we don't have many cities. In the United States, they have 90 major cities, I think. 90 metropolises. And and it was also showing the whole east coast of the whole east of the United States. It's like this line. I guess it's probably the Mississippi River. And the whole east is brilliantly lit up, and the west has a few dots. And in some countries, like I'm thinking South Africa, but I might be wrong. But there's all the dots are in straight lines. And those dots are small cities. And it's because that's the way the trains went. And so all the cities are along the train routes. And so they're all lined up. Anyway, it was very interesting. So I've been talking a lot. So has anybody else got something to say? I mean, after all, there are 9 of you. 6 thumbs up. Thank you very much. But 9 of you on right now. Which probably means, like, sometimes I hang up and I think there's been like 5 people the whole time, and I get off and it was like 120, but they each come on for a little while and then they leave. Of course, those are the 3-hour-long videos. Oh my gosh, I've been on here for 42 minutes and 59 seconds. 43 minutes now. It's later than it's ever been, and now it's even later, and now it's even later, and now it's even later. It's later than it's ever been, and now it's even later, and now it's later still. Time is marching on, and time is still marching on. You're older than you've ever been, and now you're even older, and now you're even older, and now you're even older. You're older than you've ever been, and now you're even older, and now you're older still. That's by They Must Be Giants. It's a great song. Well, it's your turn. I've talked a lot. Now tell me what's going on out there. How much lagging are we doing? If I knew what time it really actually was on my watch, then you could see if it's... Well, hi, Dan. How are you? Oh, it's getting late. It's 8 minutes to 10. 7 minutes to 10. Is that what it is over there? Or when by the time I say that, is it like 5 minutes to 10? By the time you get it. It's nice to see you, Dan. You've been here before. Didn't we have fun yesterday? We made bread from scratch. It's 5 to 10. Well, see, now you answered me back pretty quickly. See, it's 5 to 10 there, but it's 7 to 10 here. That can't work. You're lagging. No, I'm like, no, you're ahead of me. My watch is probably wrong. My watch is usually wrong. But if I check my clock on my telephone, then it would tell me. Did you know that the United States is 1 minute different than Canada? It's 6 to 10. When it's like on CBC radio, it'll say at 1 o'clock, it'll say the the long dash after 10 seconds of silence indicates 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then they go beep, 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 beep. It's 9:54 over there. Hi, Nan. I'm glad to know who's here. No, it's 9:50. 9:54. Yeah, I think that's the same as here. Hi, Zachary Tallman. Oh, yes, Tallman. I love these videos. What is it? Hold on, wait a minute. Long time watcher. I love these videos. I hope your family are staying safe. Prayers for the Ukrainian people. Yes, indeed. It's so bad. I can't even think about that. Poor people over there. Poor people. The whole thing is so unbelievable. Unthinkable. Unthinkable. Oh well. So what else did you say, Zachary Tallman? You love these videos. Dan Woods, we have an alarm in town that goes off every night at 10 p.m. Now that would be nice. I like it when the church bells in Athens would ring. I lived in a town once in Canada that the church bells rang music every I don't know how often it was. I had a chiming clock when I grew up, and it would da 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 dum 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 dong 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 dong. And I have the clock, but I can't get it to work. I took it to the guy who kept it for like 2 years because it was the pandemic. Yes, a grandfather clock. Well, any chiming clock will make that, but this is not a tall one. They call it a banjo clock because it looks kind of like a band. It's got a box at the bottom and a thing at the top. Yeah, aren't they neat? Yeah. It's interesting if you're doing something while you're listening to something. When you do that thing again, you'll remember what you listened to, right? So I listen to the news a lot. And I listen to church talks and things like that. And so while I'm doing Minecraft, I always remember the things that I did. And so those clocks will bring back it too. Watching live video on Kiev Live on DW. I love DW. That's a good one, isn't it? Deutsche Welle. It's making me sick hearing all the bombing. Came here to relax and try to smile. Yes. Yes. We are very blessed that this is not happening here. We're very blessed to live in peace. We should keep ourselves peaceful. Yes, indeed. Yes, it's amazing. This is an amazing earth. The trials that some people have to go through, brought upon by other people's whatever. Anyway, I don't want to talk about all that. I decided I wasn't going to watch any of it, but that's all that's on the news is that. And well, this latest convoy now, I'm kind of interesting. I hear it's just exciting that there's something happening. Something is happening out there that I can look at and watch. So they're going from California to D.C., and there's people from Pennsylvania going to D.C., and now another one from Washington State or Oregon going to D.C., and another one from Florida. What is it they're planning on doing when they get there? Are they going to drive around the Beltway over and over and use up gas, or are they going to just park? Can you imagine what's going to happen? There's a lot of people that use the Beltway. There's a lot of people. Our church has a temple it's like a castle. It's like it's a way up in the sky, and it used to have lights on, but people were having car crashes because it was like, oh my gosh, what's that? But people are all going to go around the Beltway and say, what is that? That's the temple, house of the Lord. So that's where Willem and I were married, and where we spent our honeymoon. It's a very nice place. Anyway, I'm always interested in current events, but I like to watch the news from all over the world. Like, I like BBC because they would have, when I used to read it on my laptop, you could choose all these different countries to read the news from. All, you know, Africa is a continent, not a country, but so all these countries in Africa and the things that were going on in each of the countries and all over Europe and Asia and Southeast Asia and in North America and South America. There was just, and then of course the poles. I love learning about the glaciers and what's happening. There's this huge glacier that's got an ice shelf, and the ice shelf is holding the glacier back. But and they figured the predictions of how long it would take to melt, blah blah blah, was because of the warmth on the top from the sun. But then they realized that there's also warmer water underneath it, and so it's melting from the bottom as well. And so this ice shelf is breaking off, which is going to hold the glacier, and that's like, they call it the Doomsday Glacier. Oh well. I was listening to a talk today about, well, I don't know if I really want to get into that either. Anyway, I like learning about all those things. Now we have 8 people. Uh-oh. Was I suddenly boring? I'm very sensitive to these things. Oh, now we have 9. I must have been interesting again. Oh my gosh, if you could see that. You know, I don't think it's good to see that. It's almost like looking into people's minds. Oh, now we have 8 again. 7 thumbs ups. But not a lot of conversation. I guess everybody's kind of winding down, eh? You know, if I, Zachary, where are you from? I don't know if I know that. Do I know that anyway? And Dan, you've told me, but I don't have my book with me. And Nan B, I know where you're from too, but I forget. Is it Ohio or something? It's a cool thing to come on here and see people from all over the world. And if I were to come on here later, like if I come on at 1 at night or after that, between, you know, in the night, wasn't that nice seeing the turkeys? Hi, Susie Q. How are you? How's everything down in Alabama? Oh, you're in New York City. Wow. What's it like in New York City? What must it be like? What's the view out your window? You know, there's this show called White Collar. Did you ever see that? This is about white collar crime, and this guy who is a white collar criminal gets approached by the FBI to help them break a case. And so they break him out of jail, or don't break him out. They get him out of jail, and so he's going to help them. And so he goes into, and Ohio. Yeah, that's right. Is that what I said? No, what did I say? Okay, Ohio. Nan B, Ohio. Oh, it's rainy there. We have a big heap of snow. We only got about 4 or 5 inches, but the stuff that fell off the roof, I never knew about these things when I lived in the South, but you know, we had about a foot of snow on the roof, and the whole thing slid down, made this huge heap on the deck. And when it lands on the deck, you think that like there's a, you know, well, what makes that much noise? Except maybe cracking in the night when the floorboards shrink and it gets really cold. We have to go backwards because I have to remember what I was going to say. So before I was talking about the roof, we're talking about raining, the snow and then the raining, and then, New York City, that's right, and White Collar. Have you ever seen White Collar? It was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is. It was a great show. I had to fast forward through, there was stuff I didn't want to watch. But, so they get this guy, and he's been given, he's got this thing on his leg, right? And he's allowed to go only 5 blocks or something like that. And buildings and bridges. It's a crazy, wonderful town. Did you see the movie Rear Window? No. That's what's out your window. More buildings and apartments. Interesting. Interesting. You know, I lived in Teaneck, New Jersey when I was little. I from my bedroom window, I could see the George Washington Bridge. And you know what I listened to in the car all the time? Like here I live in Canada, way up here. And I get 880 WCBS and I listen to the news and the news talk radio. Is that what it's called? And I listen to the traffic reports every 8 minutes on the 8, and I hear about the George Washington Bridge, the upper deck and the lower deck, and the Lincoln Tunnel. My dad used to work at the New York State Port Authority, and he would come home through the Lincoln Tunnel. And one time, there was a guy on the bus, the exhaust was so bad in the bus, in the tunnel. This was like in 1950. We're going back, eh? Let's see. I was born in 55, and I lived in Chicago for 3 years till I was 2. So till 57. Okay. All right. Well, have a good have a good time, Dan. Nice to talk to you. See you later. So my dad said that my mom was telling me the story that somebody on the bus turned blue in the Lincoln Tunnel because it was so bad. We used to go up to Pine Plains, New York from Teaneck, New Jersey. So that's up to Millerton, which is right up by Northwest Connecticut. And so we would take the Garden State Parkway and the Taconic State Parkway. Dina, hello, hello, hello. I'm wearing your hat every day. I was thinking it's stretched a bit. I'm going to put some elastic in it. I decided that today. It's nice to see you. I think of you at the airport watching the planes take off. What a neat thing to do. And writing your journal. That's an awesome thing to do. And thank you for playing the piano for me. That was very nice. I like that you have a piano and that you played it. Oh, I also wanted to ask you, you know when you made incense, where do you get the sticks? And then do you just dip them into the... I'm so glad you did too. You're up late. It's almost bedtime, isn't it? Us old folks now. Wait, I was in the midst of saying how old I was when I lived in Teaneck, New Jersey. On Teaneck Road. Oh, on Fort Lee Road. Yeah, I lived on Fort Lee Road. There's a guy on now lives in New York City. Those are my memories. I went up to see my dad to his office once. Ah, Athens misses you, she says. Thank you. It really never really appreciated me when I was there. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. So when I was in Teaneck, New Jersey, let's see, I was born in 55. You know, one day I was swimming, and so I decided I would remember everything I did every year. So when I was 1, what was my life like when I was 1? Well, I went back a couple years ago to Chicago, and I saw Hyde Park, where we had lived, right beside the University of Chicago. And I later I found on some of the stuff, it would now, it would miss me now. I went back there and I found the address of where we had lived because my mother had written letters. I guess it was when I was packaging all the stuff up in the basement in Georgia and lately going through everything. So I found out where it was and I went to Google Earth to see which building it was. And my mother would tell me that, you know, she would go out for the day and she'd get a sitter to come in and she would take a ride around the Ring Road. Oh, well, so now I know what the Ring Road is because I went there. But so when I was 1, my mother would go out and I would be waving out the window and so excited when she would come home, she'd say. And when I was 2, my brother was born. So we went to Connecticut, where he was born in the hospital where my mother was born. And so we stayed in the upstairs garage of my aunt's house, her upstairs, a little apartment above the garage, you know. And then when I was 3, we had moved to Teaneck, New Jersey. And I don't remember when I was 4, but I think I remember the bassinet from my brother. It was in we had the large bedroom, I guess. All 3 of us kids were in there. And he was in this big bassinet, and it was about as tall as I was. I could see over it. Isn't that cool? And so that was when I was 3, and when I was 4, I don't know. When I learned to ride my bicycle there. We had a bicycle we got for Christmas, and my dad had stayed up all night getting the bicycles put together. So on Christmas morning we had these bicycles, but I don't think I rode it on Christmas morning in New Jersey. We got a dog called Midgekiwis. My dad he really liked native stuff. So it was Midgekiwis was our dog, or Mudgekiwis, after Midgekiwis. I think he came from the story of Hiawatha. Did you know that one? On the shores of Gitchigumi, by the shining big sea water, stood a wigwam. Dum-da-dum-da, something Hiawatha. The Song of Hiawatha. We should Google that. I should memorize that. That was a really good thing. Hey, did you ever have to memorize poetry? When I was in the 7th grade, we had to memorize poetry. And I had this teacher. Hey, I forgot her name. Can't believe I forgot her name now. She was a very old lady. Why, she must have been at least 50. Such a young thing. And I memorized, this is what I memorized. It was 80 lines long, but of course I only remember about 5 or 10 of the lines. But it was Casey at the bat. I'll say it for you. I think I've said it to you guys before, but maybe these are different people that are going to hear it. It looked extremely rocky for the Mudville 9 that day. The score stood 2-4 with but an inning left to play. So when Cooney dived at second and Burroughs did the same, read the features to the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go, leaving there the rest, for they thought, if only Casey, something. But Flynn preceded Casey, and likewise so did Blake. The former was a puddin' and the latter was a fake. Gee, I've forgotten more than I remember now. I should look that one up too and learn it again. It's really good to memorize poetry. Did you have to memorize your times tables? We had this red piece of cardboard paper, and it in black letters were all the times tables. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2 equals 2. 1 times 3 equals 3. So the 1s and the 2s and 3s and the 4s and the 5s and the 6s, the 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s. We had to learn them up to 12. So naturally, I don't know what 12 times 13 is. Wait a minute, who's Nancy today? How can you be Nancy today? Oh, that reminds me of this girl that I met in Illinois or Indiana. Yeah, my mother was really good at times tables. She would say 5 eighths, 6 eighths, or 56. And yeah, you know, the ones and 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s, those were easy. But the 6s and 7s and 8s were harder. And I think it's because you didn't have, like, you repeated the other ones all the time, but those, you didn't have so many. You had to memorize the tables. It was awful. Yes, did you get a card that had them on it? I must have had a few of those cards over my lifetime. And I would work on them and work on them. But you know what I did for my kids? I made up songs. And as I would push them on the swings, I would swing them and I would sing, 369. I know you. Nancy today. Who could you be? No idea. You can't be me. Maybe you are me. Maybe you're the real me. Maybe I'm not me. Or maybe you're a different. Oh, we're in a parallel universe. That's what it is. And we mustn't we mustn't see each other because it will freak us out. Because it's like in the past or in the future. Do you look like me? Nancy today. I know, Jennifer today. You had the cards and even flashcards. Well, this was in Georgia. Yeah, in Athens. At Alps Road School. But you weren't in Alps Road. You weren't there, were you? You were in a different part. We listened to the Schoolhouse Rock times table songs. Interesting. Schoolhouse Rock. That was after my time. So I made up a song. I'll sing you the threes. 3, 6, 9. You have a headache? Wait a minute. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39. I can count by 3. I do it all the time. So that's how I finally learned them. But that was after my kids were. And then the fours were 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Sorry. 32, 36, 40, 44, 48, 52, 56, 60, 64. I can count by 4 for a long, long time. Would you like to hear some more? Or something like that. Those are the 3s and 4s. But the 6s were really hard for me. And also, yeah, 6s and 7s. 8s were, yeah, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 72. No, 56, 64, 72. Is that right? 72? After you do them like that for a while, you start to see the pattern. Like 3, 6, 9, 12, 14, no, 12, 15, 18. No, that's not the one. It's the 4s. When you see the 4s and it keeps repeating the same second digit, right? Like 4, 8, 12. So you've got the 2 there. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So there's got 2. We're going to do something else. Let's work on something else. So what poetry did you memorize? Did you have to memorize poetry? I had a teacher once that, it was my grade 9 teacher, Miss Patat. I remember her. Or there was Miss Whitaker and Miss Patat. Had a really cool Spanish teacher. I did it. So, Miss Whitaker, I made a tie-dye sheet once. So, you take a sheet and you bunch it up, pull a little bunch out, and you put rubber bands around it. And then you dye it, and then you put more rubber bands around it, and you dye it again. You put more rubber bands around and dye it again, all different colors, so that when you take the rubber bands off, you have these different colors under them. Anyway, or you dye it one color first. And it was really pretty. And I even put it on, you memorized prayers and Shakespeare. Shakespeare, which part? Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? What were those, the Capulets? When I was in high school, we were doing Shakespeare. And there was one girl, Martine Allard. I guess it would be called Martine Allard. She was probably from Quebec. They were from Canada, I think. But it's a common name up here. But it was very uncommon down there. But anyway, Martine, or Martina. Martine. Anyway, I remember being outside and speaking as if we were speaking in Shakespearean times. It's like the way you would do an English accent. We were doing the Shakespearean, why for art thou? Oh, Robert Frost. He's my favorite. Oh, I love him. The Walk in the Woods and Ice and Fire. Some say the world will end by fire. And what I know of desire. Some say the world will end with fire, and some would say with ice. From what I know of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But what I've seen of hate, I hold with those that favor ice, or something like that. Oh, you see me at the dump. Now, wait, who are you? Is this Pat? Is it Kat? Who do I see at the dump that's Nancy today? I'll have to go to your channel and see who you are. We don't have any other Nancys around here, do we? Hey, that last storm was named Nancy. That's pretty cool, eh? Yay! I made it. Finally. Hey, do they name all the storms after women? It's like they name all the ships after women. I was watching Murdoch Mysteries yesterday. I love Murdoch Mysteries. Have you seen it? You might not be able to see it in your country. I don't know. I love it. It's a Canadian show, and it's on cbc.ca. If you go to GEM, like gem.cbc.ca/media/Murdoch Mysteries, you might be able to find it on there. It's also on Netflix. Maybe, I don't know if it's in your country or not, but that's a good one. Anyway, on there, this nurse or somebody comes in this hospital, and oh, you did. You had to memorize Bible passages. That's interesting. Did you go to the regular public school, or were you in the Catholic school system? Was there an extra system? Did they have a Catholic? Oh, did you go to Athens Academy? Becky went there. Becky was my neighbor across the road. Did you know Becky? Oh, you get to see it. It's on Acorn TV. Murdoch Mysteries is so good. It's so clean. You don't have to fast forward through any crap. It's so nice. And their hats, they wear the most beautiful hats. Wow. I would love to make hats like that. Every time I watch it, I have to pause it and figure out how the hats are put together and what they look like. I love it. And it was also filmed in Coburg, which is near Toronto. And so when we come home from Toronto, I would make Willem stop in Coburg and let me drive around. And so I found the place where, oh, you went to Athens Christian Academy. Did you know Becky Buster and Larry Smith? I wonder if you did. Wow. That would be cool. We used to live across the road from them. And so there was us, Cynthia, Nancy, and Charles. And we would go over there and we would have pinecone battles together. And we would play football because football was such a big deal in Georgia. You're a guy, Nancy, today. Are you the one that I used to know your wife had cancer? I haven't seen you in the dump for a long time. You're not Frank. Frank doesn't have any internet. Who could you be? It was just Athens Christian School. So you didn't know them, I guess. I don't know where their school was. I think it was on the Danielsville Highway or the Jefferson Highway, or that's where it is now. So it's at the Ring Road on 10 and Jefferson Highway. Is that the name of it? I don't know. My boyfriend, Cyrus, I wonder whatever happened. Did you ever know Cyrus Campbell? He was my boyfriend when I was a teenager. And he had a paper route. And so we would do this paper route together sometimes. And we would go down all these roads, the Ben Epsbridge Road, and I don't know, we went down Cedar Shoals High School area, and we used to play canasta with his parents. His father was Procter Campbell. And I thought that was such an interesting name since there was Procter and Gamble. Procter Campbell. I guess he'd be long gone by now, too. Strange, eh, when people keep bumping off. We're getting to that age, eh? Like, I always figure I'll live till I'm 85, but I'm 66. Who knows? Maybe I'm only going to live to 69. But I have a lot of spunk, so I might stick around for a long time just because I'm energetic. But then again, oh, Ian. Hello, Ian. Oh, wait a minute. Your mom's name is your mom's name Nancy? Cindy. It's Cindy. That's right. Hi, Ian. How are you doing? That's it. So you're Nancy today. You are a hoot. This guy, he knows everything about computers. He's a real whiz. He is a champion at computers. My kids used to, my Ben, he used to put together computers a long time. No and yes. Yes, your mother's name is not Nancy, it's Cindy. Yes. Yes. Okay, that's cool. Boy, I got to write you down in my book. I know where you live. Ontario. Dum da dum. I made cookies yesterday and I was going to take some over to your mom. I didn't bake them all yet. The first batch I had to give it to Frank because they were a little bit burned. Nancy today. Yes, your mom and I, we did a Nancy Today video together, didn't we? I came over there and we had this little formal interview or something. Your mom is great. She's an awesome woman. She's so organized and she's got this notebook of, I just think she's so amazing. She's on top of everything. She's really cool. Anyway, she's made a garden out of this little front yard. Little tiny postage stamp front yard, and she must have gotten a year's supply of food out of that. She put on all kinds of whatever manure and whatever, and she built a fence around it, and she had sunflowers all around it, and she carved posts and put them up. She's just amazing person. It's neat to run into people like that, to run into people that are just amazing. Well, good night, Dina. We'll have to talk on the phone again, okay? Sometime. Have fun at the airport, waving at the airplanes. Do you have that app? Do you have that flight tracker app so that you can see which airplanes are going? Or when I was down there, the only flights that you could get into the Athens airport, like from Tennessee, you had to come in on what airlines was it? You had to go from Charlotte or I can't remember what it was, but it doesn't fly everywhere, does it? Like from there? But this flight tracker app, it's such a cool app because you can see all the flights overhead. So if you see a plane overhead, you can look on it and it'll tell you where it's going, where it's been, and the name of the kind of airplane it is, and it'll show you the flight path. And it'll say if it's a private plane, and you can see all these local people commuting, like from New York City to Connecticut, all these people that have their own airplanes. I think that would be cool to sit there at the airport with the flight tracker app and watch the planes go taking off. Anyway, see you later, Tina. It's nice to see you again. Dina is another awesome person. She's very awesome. She and her daughter sing together. There's videos of her. Dina and Emily was her daughter, and they would play music. And I filmed them. I would always go visit them when I was in Athens. That was fun. Look we have 11 people now. Just when I'm starting to get tired, but the people number is getting higher. Now we're up to 12. What's with this? When I made bread the other day, usually when I get off of these, I look and it says how many minutes, the average number of minutes, and like 3 minutes or Yeah, 3 minutes is about the average number of minutes that people watch me, even though I'll be on for a long time. People come and go, they click through and they might listen for a minute or two and something, and then their topic changes as it always does, and then they go away and do something else. But I do that too when I'm looking at videos. I'll click through them and I'll, like I might like this person, I might like listening to them, but right now they're not talking about something I'm interested in, so I click around. But the other day when I made bread, there was like the average time was 17 minutes. That was like enormous. Like, good grief, somebody really wanted to learn to make bread and Christmas stolen and cookies. Didn't we have fun? That was great. I can't believe I actually did it. 14. Oh, look at that. And up goes 14 and 12 likes. Look at that. What could be better? But when it gets up to 14, then I get a little bit worried, like, uh-oh, I don't know these people. Uh-oh, will they judge me? I better be on my best behavior. It's a little too late for that, Nancy. I have lanolin all over my hands. My hands are going to get leathery. Isn't it weird how your hands start to have your veins showing? Like this thing about your skin thins when you're in your 60s. It thins out. Well, good night. Good night, Zachary Tallman. It's really nice talking to you. And I'm so glad you could come and enjoy the view from here. And oh, I have to ask you about the lockdown. What was it like? You were in an apartment up seeing high rises? Did you go outside at 7 o'clock every night and beat your pots and pans on the balcony with other people? Anyway, you can leave a comment when you have time if you have to go. See you later. It's interesting the different times of day. If I come on at different times of day, different people are on. If I come on in the middle of the night, all the people from New Zealand and, Philippines and Australia are on. I have a nephew. Hi, Diane. I love that app on my phone. Oh, you have that and love it. Mainly because my town has an airport in it and they fly over the house in Oxford. Isn't that cool? Yes, I just love that. There was a day that there was a president flying overhead, and so I went outside and I filmed it, and I think it was Obama, and because he was coming to Ottawa, and so I knew what time he was supposed to come or whatever, and so there was an airplane coming in, and I thought it was him, but I don't know that I don't think that they put that one on the flight tracker app. They probably didn't, they probably have the security detail. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you something about Murdoch Mysteries. There's another good one, Wind Calls the Heart or something like that. That's another Canadian one. There's this Mountie there's this girl from the city, and she goes out to into a frontier town, and I guess it's all in Canada. I don't know where she's from, but and this Mountie who is reassigned to be in that area because I guess her dad is a big deal, and he pulls some strings, and so this Mountie resents her. But the undercurrent, they fall in love, I suppose. I haven't gotten that far yet, but that's a really cool show too. Oh, I remember I was going to tell you about White Collar. I started to tell you about that. So this guy, he's been given he's taken to the Salvation Army or a thrift store and given 50 cents or $5 or something to get himself some clothes because he's a prisoner, right? And the FBI's gotten him out so that he can help them break this white collar crime. And so he goes into this thrift store, and he's a real interesting man. He's very funny. And so he meets this lady who is giving away all of her husband's beautiful fancy suits. And he starts talking to her, and he's admiring the suits, and they get into this great conversation. Well, anyway, he ends up with all the suits. And he also ends up having her attic apartment, which opens out onto the rooftop, which is like a penthouse in New York City. And so he's up there, and so the FBI agent is coming to pick him up. And he says, well, I've changed my address. I'm over here now. And so he comes up there, and this FBI agent is kind of looking around like, what the heck? You've got this place which is like 10 times better than anything you could ever afford. And you're a convict that we've got, you're supposed to be in that crappy hotel room over there, wearing secondhand ripped clothes. Anyway, I like that show. That was a good one. Boy, we've talked about a lot of things, haven't we? Memorizing arithmetic, memorizing poetry and Shakespeare and my travels. 7 days for $76 on the bus right across. I really liked Phoenix. I really didn't want to leave Phoenix. If I hadn't left, I would probably be there still. I would have met somebody and gotten married there, and I would have raised my kids there. But I didn't. I left. I went back to Georgia, went back to school again. I kept going back to school, and I kept dropping out. But now that I'm 66, I've even passed 64, will you still love me? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Anyway, but now that after you're 65, you get to go to university for free in Canada. So I want to go to university, but I doubt myself, right? Like I doubt that, university in Canada is really, really, really hard. University in Georgia was so simple. It was like a cakewalk. I didn't have to study. Although I did study, I studied hard. But I came to Canada, and this university here was so hard. And I'd never gotten bad grades. I'd gotten B's, maybe a C now and then, but I'd never gotten a D. First class I take here, I got a D. It was a psych class. It was the most fascinating class. They were offering 2 classes, the same class. It was social psychology. And no, it wasn't social. Yeah, I think it was social psych. So the first one, I attended on the first day of class, and he wrote all the things on the board. Like he would say something, and there was a sentence there on the board. So you wrote it down. And he would tell you just a little about it. And then second sentence, and you'd write it down. And it was the most boring thing ever. It was like I had a biology class like that in grade 10 where Mr. Billups, he was a very interesting character. Anyway, he would write all the stuff on the board, and all you had to do is memorize it and feed it back, and then you got an A. But I didn't want a class like that. I wanted to learn. And so there was this other, and other students were saying it's a charade in here. It's a really good, easy class. Well, there was another one that was teaching it, and so I went and sat in on his class. And he was fascinating. He was talking about the different studies and what was done in the study and what they found out. And that to me was really interesting. And so I changed classes. And so I took this one, which was fascinating. But I couldn't remember, like, who authored the study. I could remember what the study was about and what the results were. But I couldn't remember all those details of what year it was and where it was and who did it. To me, that was not important. Anyway, and my mind only retains what I deem to be important. That's it. Anyway, so I got a D. I got a D. It was the best class I ever took. I loved it. It was so interesting. Social psychology. I learned things like the power of a group. Like when you're in a group, the power of anonymity. That when you're in a group, you're much more likely to do things that you wouldn't do if you're all by yourself. You might do something illegal if you're in a group of people doing it. But if you're by yourself, you would never do that. And another thing was that if someone asks you for a favor and you do it, you are more likely to do them a favor again. So like if you ask somebody, can I put this political sign in your yard? And they say yes, then they are more likely to do something for you again. If you ask them, can you watch my dog? They're more likely, or something like that. There's a few interesting things I learned about in social psych. It was a really good class. I wanted to, I mean, I would like to major in social psych. Wouldn't that be cool? I have a friend that was a psych major, and I think she got a master's in psych. But she would read Psychology Today, and she would tell me about the most interesting stuff. I don't know why I never read that magazine. Maybe I should subscribe to it. I do read a lot when I'm online. I just don't read a lot in books. So you know what that means? That means it's bedtime. Because if I don't say goodnight now, it's going to turn off and it'll say goodnight for me. So it's been very nice. Thank you for entertaining me. It was a little too early to go to bed, but it was 9 o'clock and I was kind of done and thought I would say goodnight. So on that note, good night. You can do this at home. Results may differ. And you heard it here last. And that's very interesting that there's a Nancy today just down the road. Anyway, good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.